So Spinoza, let's talk about Spinoza. Um, Spinoza, Bill W, Jesus, all had God's kingdom's going to come. It's going to happen. Nothing's a mistake. Which at least for Bill W and Spinoza means that God is all around us. It's the universe. It's the pantheism that so many conservatives fear out of South American religion. That that and there's the God of Einstein's God was the God of Spinoza. It's the universe. Being itself. That's what was on the that's what was at the in the burning bush. I am who am, who is, who bees. God is who bees. Now whether those were put in Jehovah's name earlier or later, what's in Exodus is that essentially that point. Whether that was actually what was told to Moses, or whether it was put in Moses' mouth, which is what a lot of stuff was. So, but Exodus says God is he who is, the God of Jacob, the God of Isaac, the God of the living God, and of course the Word is the word by which the universe was made. So that's Sophia is another way to look at the word. It's how we have knowledge of the universe. The standard model is the word nowadays. If you're a physicist, and you believe in whatever determinism Spinoza believes in, and it's kind of a loose determinism. The interesting thing is, people who've had near-death experiences, the real ones, not the ones that you see sometimes where they talk about meeting Jesus, and and if they weren't Christian they said, oh, it was Jesus, and that stresses that which strains credulity, especially. So at least for those of us who are Spinozists, that believes that God has no ego and does not care what club you belong to. But it's that we go and come to this world and have experiences, and go back and come back and go back and come back, either to learn lessons or to have experiences. That's a debate. That's a big debate in reincarnation circles, and which, by the way, is the Gospel of Luke has Jesus saying that John the Baptist was Elijah, reborn. That's what Luke says in the first chapter. And then of course there's the notes in the Catholic Bible say, no, this wasn't actually true. And it's like, well, this was said. So, who's arguing with a second face? I think it's probably the people who annotate the gospel for the Catholic Church, or the Orthodox Church, frankly. The idea that Christianity and the Gospel of Luke supports reincarnation doesn't sit well with people. It didn't sit well with me until I saw enough near-death experience stuff from the more Spinozist viewpoint, that there's a plan that we work out with God. Essentially, that's what people who come back say. You made a contract with God, and and of what you're going to do and what you're going to learn here, and and you don't get to come back to heaven until you've done these things that you said you were going to do. So basically what my contract is. It's some strange stuff, but yeah. So then here's the question about those people who make their own videos and maybe don't worry about whether they're lying or not by saying, these people, that supports the traditionalist view that, you must be saved and that's all you need. If you're a Spinozist, is there anything wrong with that? It's like, the having your cake and eating it too kind of thing. You can't really object to the prosperity gospel or any of this if it's something that's going to happen anyway. If you can't say, the universe is going to work out the way God planned it and not realize that the people who believe in cheap grace are also. So that's part of God's plan. Now, maybe that's what they need to learn while they're here, is that it's not cheap, and that maybe the real God's plan is that, we then get beyond of even the question of sin, or the questions of the sins of others. That's the thing that I talk about a lot. That the original sin is being interested in other people's sins, which that's the original sin that keeps on coming. It's not original meaning it was the first one. It's the sin that says, we want the knowledge of good and evil that other people do. Because that's really what some people go to church for. Who gets to go to hell? Who do we want there? Who do we want there? So, if, those of us who, especially those of us who come from fundamentalist roots, not personally, but familially, I trace back to, the Mayflower and the people who, and the people in the boats after in New England who, were Anabaptists and, became disciples of Christ and, believed they were going for the purified faith of the scriptures. So that's, it's, so that, that whole hangover of believing that God has designed life as Squid Game for souls. Thank you, Japan, for Korea for creating that series. Because if life is the narrow road, the Squid Game for souls, and only those people who get it exactly right go to heaven, and everybody else burns. If you believe in an exclusive God, then your God has two left, has feet of clay. If the perfection of God is the perfection of love, then then God has to be humble. Which means, but the humble God would tolerate, again, the fundamentalists to say, it's cheap grace. And Spinoza is kind of cheap grace. Although the hardest thing to do is to let people be. It's easy to figure out who sins, worry about who's sinning where. That's, anybody can do that. But to believe that, we made sin up, we made evil up, that it not only doesn't exist, but God can't see it. He sees us and loves us, but doesn't, the whole belief that there's no anti-God, it's not balanced. If we invented evil as a species, then and by doing so invented free will, not that our lives don't have freedom, because we freely design with God what we want to happen with our life, but it is planned, and it's but if it's deterministic planning that we're in on the planning process, but free, if to an extent God's plan is going to happen anyway, and we don't have as much free will as we think to determine what our next move is, that we've already made those decisions, and it's already been negotiated, and we know what experiences we're going to have, and how we deal with them is what is not what we're judged on, but what we have to learn. And what our life reviews show us. It's I guess the answer is that, people who've gone and come back and, and had their life reviews, worse than being judged by God is feeling what other people felt because of you, the good and the bad. So feeling the joy you've given and feeling the pain you've given. That's up close and personal judgment. That's not like, you can't go do a sacrament and have that not be there. The whole point is to have the lesson. So, it's why there's a loving God, that it doesn't crush you when you go through and review your life. It's, what you have is your memories. So, if you review if you view your life with a loving God and with loving angels, and then it's horrifying, but it's not horrific. But it's definitely, there's no cheap grace there either. If you're responsible for the good you do and the evil you do, according to how you made other people feel, what you did to acknowledge them or hate them, treat them well or ignore them, that's the ripple effects of your life. There's no indulgence that fixes that. There's no, that's a different kind of cheap grace, to say if you do the right things and have the right spells or miracles or rites, then you'll get away scot-free. You won't. You still have to eventually come up against what you did to others. And there's no indulgence that makes that go away. You're not going to go to hell, but you're going to face it. But you face it joyfully, but it's still, the concept of cheap grace, it's not cheap, because you can't run away from your past. Or we should shut the door on it. Because it's your brokenness that people use. And your brokenness is what you use. We use. So I guess, that's Spinoza. Yeah, that's cheap grace, and so is Catholicism, and so is anybody who has faith to some extent. Wants the bad stuff to get swept under the rug, but you can't. And it's not because God insists; it's because we have to do that for our own development. So, yeah. So that's the questions of, is cheap grace part of God's plan? Some it is. But will we get beyond it? Some people say that humankind will survive, and it will survive because it gets to that level. And will be a profound change in who we are as a species if we quit eviling others. So, yeah. Interesting questions.